Good evening, everyone. Welcome along to your Monday night, 6:30, the Rangers Rabble. It's the late women's show tonight, as usual, at 6:30, and I've got a cat here, sorry. My name's Brian, host tonight, and I am joined by Wolf and Alan. Wolf, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Apologies to everybody for last week. Obviously, we couldn't get it on because the men's first team were at Ibrox and we were all at the game. Had I known the traffic was going to be as late as it was, I would have done something from my phone, but I wasn't set up for it, so I didn't realise I'd get there quite so quickly because bizarrely, there was no traffic last week. I couldn't quite believe it. But yeah, no show last week, unfortunately, due to circumstance. So 2 games to cover tonight, guys. One that we were all at, funnily enough, Alan, and one that none of us were at, so that could be quite interesting.
And Alan, how's you?
Not too bad. Bit busy time of year. We're working in the industry that we most days do, so I'll be quite glad once we get the next few days out the way. But positive for the women, at least at the weekend, with some good results. So something to be happy about getting into Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll speak about the Partick Thistle game, Wolf. I mean, the lineup was Jenna Fife in goals, Nick Docherty, Rafferty, Pegram, Austin, Shinji, McCleary, Shabajo, McCauley, Wilkinson, and Laura Berry on the bench. I mean, again, pretty much a stock sort of 11 now, isn't it?
Yeah, but if you jump forward to yesterday, it's basically the same 11. So it's that seems to be the preferred starting 11 when the players that are available. Still a bit concerned that we've got a couple of long-term casualties still out. No Brogan Hayes. Brogan was hopefully going to be back for the winter break, which is now just started, and there's no sign of Brogan at all. Although I think Alan did speak to her at one of the games. So yeah, that's a bit of a concern. But we can only play the players that are available, and we're still winning games. So can't say better than that, really, can you? And they're off now for 3 weeks. So hopefully, the likes of Brogan can get back fit over the Christmas period, and nobody comes to any domestic injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. Any sort of info on Brogan, Wolf? Alan, sorry.
No, listen, it was an informal chat I had with Brogan at a game recently, and she was just saying she was close. She's absolutely champing it a bit to get back in and back involved, but we're a long way off. We'll just want to tick all the boxes and not take any chances because we've got a relatively small squad. We can't afford to bring a player like Brogan Hay back in too quickly and then she breaks down again and we lose her possibly for the rest of the season. I know she was hoping to get back on the pitch before Christmas, and that's not quite happened, but I thought we were a wee bit cautious with her, and we get a fit and firing for the rest of the season because we see how tight the league is. We know how tight it's been the last few years, and we need every bit of firepower we've got in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, Wolf, it's maybe not a bad thing she wasn't fit before Christmas because, there's 3 weeks now, as you say, till the next game. So maybe that'll be a good chance for her to build up her, obviously we'll have her match fitness, but she'll certainly be closer to full fitness by the time they come back from the break.
Yeah, the way the games have gone, I mean, the fact that, it's no secret, we're covering 2 games tonight, we won them both 3-0, so we're still winning games of football. You know what I mean? So, yes, we could do with probably scoring a few more goals. That's no disrespect to anybody that we're playing, and Brogan would help on that front because she's an exceptional player. But yeah, I mean, had we slipped up in any of these games, we could be ruining the fact that she's not playing. So Alan's right. She's got to just tick all the boxes, make sure she's right. She could be pivotal for the second half of the season.
Yeah, she could. She absolutely will. I mean, Alan, as Wolf just said, 2-3-0 wins we're going to speak about. Is there a concern there's not more goals? With all due respect to Partick and Aberdeen, I mean, is there a worry that there's not enough goals?
Not massively. I think it's more important that we're consistently getting 3 points on the board. I think the first sort of 20 minutes of the Partick Thistle game, maybe first half hour or so, was some of the best football I've seen the team play all season. I thought we were excellent. We scored 2 very, very quick goals, and we thought we're in for an absolute rout here. we're disappointed maybe not to score more goals the previous week against Renfrew. So really, really good start against Partick, and then it just seemed to fade out. Everybody thinks maybe it faded out after a second goal, but we continued playing really well, and just that final ball didn't quite get to where it needed to be. And then it was, the game was over after 6 minutes, and we took a 2-0 lead, and the team saw it out without any sort of great risk at the back. It's important that we're not just looking to score goals, but also keeping clean sheets and cutting out some of the mistakes at the back. I think Laura Rafferty being back in the side is absolutely massive and helps immensely with that. And as Laura gets up to speed and gets up full sort of match sharpness after being out for a long time, it'll only stand us in good stead. But I wouldn't be too worried. I'd certainly like us to add a bit of firepower in January and the new year, where it be new players coming in or just looking to get players back. Because potentially in January you might see not just Brogan, but you'd be hoping you might see Lizzie and Sarah Ewens.
Yeah, interestingly, Brian, on Sarah Ewens, I noticed from the Gers guide that Rangers released this morning, there's a behind the lens thing or whatever with Sarah Ewens coming out at the end of the week. On the Rangers website. So the fact that they've done something with Sarah would indicate to me that she can't be too far away, because if she was still, a distance from being fit, they probably wouldn't put something out involving her, to get her back into it. So hopefully, as Alan says, hopefully that means coming back in January. There's no word at all on how far away Lizzie is, but hopefully Sarah will be back, because they did hope she'd be back in around about that time. That would be a bonus, because she scores goals, and that's what we need. We need a goal scorer. There's no point in going out and signing one if I've got the two of them coming back. However, if one of them's not going to be back in a hurry, we might have to, go out in January and sign a goal scorer. But I mean, on Laura Rafferty, to mix the two games up, fantastic that Laura got 90 minutes yesterday. She got 75 minutes against Partick, and obviously you build it up. She got 90 minutes yesterday. I mean, that's great to see. Hopefully, that's her over her major injury problems, because she was out a long time, Laura Rafferty, and she's now back in the team. So hopefully, she can stay in the team.
Yes, absolutely. I think it was a mystery injury, wasn't it, Alan? They couldn't quite get down to the bottom of it, and then eventually they sussed what it was and managed to get her an operation.
Yeah, I think it was one of those you see sometimes players keep getting treated for niggles and injuries, but they can't quite find the root of the problem. And finally, they seem to have found the root of the problem for Laura, and she certainly went through a very, very tough time. And I'm glad to see the club has supported her well and got her back fit and healthy, and that's really good to see. I think she appears to be a very good influence on the team, on and off the park. She's an absolute pleasure to talk to. Anybody in the crowd that's had the opportunity to speak to Laura, I'll speak volumes about how amazing she is. She's obviously involved in her own coaching academy, so loads of exposure fans have had to her through that. So really good to see. But from a sort of fans' point of view, it's brilliant to have Laura Rafferty, the player, back on the park.
Very much so. Much needed experience at that back line, captain of Northern Ireland. So very much needed right now, with the numbers that are in that position. Wolf, as you said, quick start to the Partick Thistle game. Katie Wilkinson and Quincy Savaggio scoring within 4 minutes of each other, and they were very similar goals, if I remember. They were both sort of angled shots into the bottom corner, nice, neat finishes.
Yeah, the first one was a good run from Laura Berry, played in Wilco. Wilco did what Wilco does, and the second goal, since you touched on them both, was a fantastic passing move. Funnily enough, the second goal yesterday was much the same as a great passing move as well. I mean, I haven't noted down exactly who, but it went basically right across the pitch, and it finished with Ailey putting the ball into Quinty, and Quinty finished it very, very nicely, as you say. And as Alan said, 6 minutes in against Partick Thistle at Broadwood, job was done. 2-0. Took a long time to get the third goal. A lot of huffing and puffing, but no chances taken. it was a bit of a strange day because we didn't really watch much of the second half because you were too busy showing us memes on your phone because there was something happening at Hampden that nobody really expected. So the second half was a bit of a kind of non-event from that point of view. But I was very, very disappointed. I was speaking to Mary, the women's SLO, at the game, and she hit on a very good point that from all the research that they've done, half the women's regular support say they prefer going to Broadwood than going to Ibrox. It wasn't a fixture clash, and there was hardly anybody there. You know what I mean? The crowd was I don't know what the crowd was, but it was very, very disappointing. And, you know, I know it's that time, it's the time of year, it's getting towards Christmas and all that, but it was still, you know, it was a really poor crowd. And that was despite the fact that half the rabble was there after the Christmas night out. You know what I mean? It was great to see Connor along for a game. You know, just the fact we couldn't get them on tonight, but you know what I mean. It's fine. But yeah, that point of view is disappointing. It must disappoint the girls as well when they look up. There's not a lot of people going about. You know what I mean? But very professional performance. Did what they had to do. I mean, I know you'll touch on the third goal, but yeah, I mean, the second goal particularly pleased me because it was an absolutely great flow and moving. As Alan said, 2 up early doors, we expected an avalanche of goals. They didn't come, partly through our finishing, partly because, as usual, the Thistle goalkeeper played quite well. You know what I mean? The Thistle defence played quite well. We were never really in any danger that I can remember. It was a long time ago. But yeah, very, very professional performance. And touching on the point you said, you know, to Alan, is it a worry we're not scoring more goals? It probably is, right? But there's not a lot of teams blowing other teams away. You know, this season there's very few really, really high scoring games. So that would indicate to me that even the part-time teams are better coached. I don't think the players have changed too much. I just think the coaching's getting better. So they're being more organised. And it's more difficult to break down an organised team, irrespective of the quality of the players. So I think for the standard of the game going forward, I think that's quite a good thing because it's much as it's nice to sit and watch a game when Wilco's getting a hat trick and Laura Berry's getting a hat trick and Mia McCauley's knocking in a couple and we're ending up beating teams 12, 13, 14. You know what I mean? It doesn't look good. On paper, it doesn't look good. It was great for us, but it just doesn't look good. And as I say, I don't think there's not that many teams getting an absolute coating.
Yeah, I do think the standard has got better. I think, as you say, Wolf, there's not as many close to sort of doubles or double figure games now. It's far closer than it used to be. It's certainly
that's a good point Keith makes as well. The Thistle, they only had 2 on the bench. He said there was only 11 players available. I think they only had 2 on the bench. They were really short on numbers, so they really did dig in, you know. And fair play to them for that.
Absolutely. And then Laura Berry huffed and puffed all night and then eventually got a reward in the 79th minute.
Yeah, listen, Laura Berry will never be happy if she comes off the park, no scoring goals. And, you know, she spent most of the season playing from wide right. You know, we lack in numbers at wide with Lizzie and Brogan missing most of the season. It's only really Mia and Laura there, unless we push the young fullbacks up. So Laura Berry's done a lot of graft and a lot of hard yards, and somebody done glamorous work of being a forward player. So, you know, she perseveres. She's always in there. You know, she's sometimes scoring the ugly, scrappy goals that just all about perseverance. And, you know, the important thing is she is adding numbers in terms of assists as well. You know, she is contributing, even when she's gone deep into games before getting a goal. And it's just good to see her getting a reward because she is certainly putting the work in. And Laura Berry's going to be judged on the goals she scores, even when she is playing wide.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Wolf, it was a long time before subs were made. You know, it was the 75th minute before any subs appeared. You know, Conley Jackson came on the 75th minute with May Cruft, and then Lafay and Meng Wen in the 81st, and then Cersei Morrow in the 90th. So it was very late for some subs, wasn't it? Was there a surprise in the sort of delay in the subs, or was that, do you think, part of the plan?
I don't think it was part of the plan. I think it's just the way the game went. I just think Leanne obviously didn't see the need to move it. I think the Laura Rafferty one was probably planned. I think they've probably. I would think they maybe thought we'll give her an hour and see how she does, and she'll last 75 minutes because she's just coming back, as we said, off that lengthy injury. So, because I'm a great believer, if you're bringing a player back in, start them, see how long they can last. And if you've got them planned for an hour, if they can last 65, 70 minutes, keep them on that little bit longer just to help their fitness. So that might have been the case. It might have been planned for 75 minutes. I don't know. We need to go back and ask Leanne that, but it's not really that important, I think. It's great to see Maycroft getting another 15, 20 minutes at the end. Quinty Sabaggio had done her job. She'd got her goal. She played quite well. So, then obviously Lee Mengwen coming on for Ailey Austin. Ailey does an awful lot of running. So the game's done. I mean, the game was put to bed at that point. So you're as well just freshen it up, give Lee a run out, and, as I say, give Ailey a wee bit of a rest. Same with Cammy coming on for Laura Berry. The game was done. Laura, again, as Alan says, playing out wide, does an awful lot of running. So rest them up as you can, and then great to see Sasha getting even just, it was only a couple of minutes. Basically, she got the stoppage time at the end of the game when she came on for Kim. Great to see that. But what it wasn't so great to see was Katie Wilkinson taking Martin Douglas' advice almost literally when we got the penalty when Lee Mengwen was fouled and got the penalty, and Wilco spots the ball up, and Martin Douglas, doing what Martin Douglas does, all she has to do is put it high. I don't think he meant quite that high.
No, certainly while Brian stays on mute, it's worth comparing that penalty to one that Mark Wilkinson used to take regularly for England between the bigger posts. It was not a good penalty. It was high, wide, and far from handsome. But in the end, it meant absolutely nothing to the context of the game. I think it just summed up the last 60 minutes of the game. It was underwhelming. I think you could say it was just one of those afternoons that it completely fell flat and had absolutely nothing about it after 25, 30 minutes of the game. And that penalty summed it up.
Yeah, it certainly did. I mean, as you say, it was more akin to the Wilkinson from rugby league than football. So it was a poor. Yeah,
rugby union. He's not brave enough.
Rugby union, sorry. But no, it was a poor penalty, and thankfully it didn't matter. So that was put behind. And then Wolf, we made the journey up to the Balmoral Stadium. Close to where you are, and you couldn't go because fixture clashes. We had a convincing win up there last year, Wolf. Certainly not the same this year. As you said before, the other teams are just maybe getting coached better.
Yeah, I think that and the fact that, from what I know, all I know about the game yesterday up at Aberdeen was what I've seen in the highlights and what Demi's told me from speaking to her briefly, because she was actually at the game. I was hoping she'd be on tonight because she was at both games. But unfortunately, she's got family commitments tonight, so she can't be with us. But I did speak to her briefly about the game. Because obviously you were stuck in Forest, do whatever you do in Forest. Myself and Alan were fortunate enough, if that's the right turn of phrase, Alan, to be at Tynecastle yesterday watching the men's first team. Ironically, as you say, I live about 4 miles from Balmoral Stadium and I couldn't go to the game. But yeah, we did win by a hat load, but I believe the Aberdeen goalkeeper had a great game yesterday. I mean, there's a couple of her saves on the highlights, but Demi was saying she made some really, really good saves. The referee apparently was shocking. All I got out of Demi was the referee was shocking, and she thinks that Nick Dock was taken off after 66 minutes for her own good before she got a red card for shouting at the referee. So I'm guessing Nick was having words.
Colour me shocked a poor refereeing performance. Just no surprise. Again, Alan, pretty much the same team as Partick Thistle. Again, playing, 23rd minute, Katie Wilkinson gets on the score sheet as she often does. She opens the scoring. Another good goal for her.
Yeah, listen, we were keeping an eye on Twitter for updates while we're at Tynecastle, and it was a wee bit disappointing. Didn't seem to be much action, judging by the updates. And we probably expected that we would have taken the lead a wee bit earlier. It seemed a slow start based on the volume of updates. And even the group chat was very, very quiet, and there's no mention of the game and much action. But Kate Wilkinson's a fairly safe bet for first goal scorer, and you always just want to take any danger out of these games and take banana skins away and make sure you get the first goal. And it's always vitally important that we get that. So even though you expected a win and no slip-ups, it's always a relief to see that notification come in if you're not there that we've taken the lead.
Yeah, I mean, Brian. Obviously, we've just watched the highlights. I mean, it's worth mentioning to say that the Aberdeen keeper made some good saves. The first thing it shows you in the highlights, a fantastic double save she makes from Wilco before Wilco scores. I mean, if you haven't seen this, folks, track down the highlights. They're on the Rangers website. I mean, it's a brilliant double save for any goalkeeper at any level. The fact she stopped the first one, it came straight back to Wilco and she stopped that. I mean, that was, to me, that was. Had I been at the game, you'd be thinking, "Oh no, here we go. This is going to be one of those days," because the keeper's having a worldie, and it happens all the time against us.
It does. I mean, Alan, the amount of times we come up against teams and goalies have absolute stormers, it's quite phenomenal, isn't it? I mean, I'm not saying it happens every week, but more often than not, there's a goalkeeper has an absolute stormer against us.
Oh, definitely. And listen, Katie Cox has obviously got a very high reputation as a young keeper at Chelsea. She's on loan at Aberdeen this season, so it's certainly the sort of loan you see in the women's game. It's doing her the world of good. She's getting exposure in first team games. They've obviously got a very experienced manager in the women's game up at Aberdeen now in Scott Booth. So Aberdeen will progress and they'll probably be disappointed even though they'll get more points this season. But they're certainly a much tougher challenge than they were a year or two ago. Even so, we know we're going to have to work hard. And as you say, so many times we're going up against these teams, especially on these long trips up the road. Because we say it every time we go to Montrose, keeper is an absolute worldie. At Montrose with a couple of keepers like that. Even we go and play Hamilton, their keepers tend to have an absolutely brilliant game. The games of their life. Even though they're shipping loads of goals, but they're still turning in top performances against us. And by all the chatter that I see from yesterday's game, Katie Cox added to the list.
Absolutely. And then Wolf, the goal eventually came, as I say. Katie Wilkinson scoring. Probably not her finest strike, but it went in the goal like everything else. A little bit sclaffy along the ground, but at the same time, all that mattered is it went in the goal.
Yeah, as Alan says, she's always a good bet for the first goal as well. But I mean, touching on Katie Cox, the Aberdeen goalkeeper, the very fact that Aberdeen, can get a goalkeeper on loan from Chelsea. You know what I mean? Yeah. That tells you how the regard that maybe the WSL holds the Scottish League in, that they're willing to put a keeper up there. It's maybe something we should be exploring, but bringing in kind of players on loan rather than just taking players out. It might be something worth considering for from our point of view, particularly going up to somewhere like Aberdeen. I mean, there's not a great appetite for women's football up here, really. You know what I mean? But I mean, they're willing to put her up here. As Alan says, under a very experienced manager. I mean, I've got my own opinion on Scott Booth, and I'll leave that for another time. But he certainly knows what he's talking about in the women's game. He was at Glasgow City a long time. So that from the game's point of view is quite good. But it was nice to see after that double save that she made that Laura Berry played the ball through to Wilco, and as Alan says, Laura's playing wide a lot. She's coming into the wide a lot, but when she's not scoring goals, she's assisting. She's involved in almost everything, which is absolutely fantastic to see. And Wilco just does what Wilco does, give her a chance in the box, and she's probably going to score it unless it's from a penalty spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Alan, Laura Berry was on the receiving end of a superb pass from Shinji and a smart finish into the bottom left corner. So Laura got rewarded. She had an assist and then she got a goal.
As I said, Laura's got to be judged on her numbers, and she continues to add to them. an assist and a goal. It's becoming a regular thing, and the more Carl misses games, the more Laura Berry seems to score, and it'll be bittersweet for Carl when she's been missing games. But it's absolutely brilliant. We all want to see our young players come through and make a success themselves, but especially young players that are coming through and love this club. And it's just brilliant to see. We don't see enough in the men's game, but we've been very, very fortunate to see it a lot lately in the last few years with the women's team. Jodie's well beyond her 100th appearance now. We've got Laura Berry, we've got Mia McCauley. We've seen how well the other girls have done coming through. We're now looking at bringing the next batch through. We've got the sort of, I mean, the type of contract the sort of youth to pro girls are on that are out on loan, but we've got high hopes for some of the girls that are out on loan and doing well. We've got another player in the match for Gart Cairn, young Mia MacArthur. We've got players champing at a bit to get involved and get in the team at Rangers, and it's brilliant to see that Laura Berry right now is getting some of the plaudits.
I think we're using the loan system very well. Alan knows more about that because he keeps an eye on it for the Women's Group podcast. He keeps more of an eye on the loan players than we do, Brian. But Laura Berry's come back. She's doing great guns after being on loan last season. Same with Ailey Austin's doing great guns after being out on loan. As he says, Mia MacArthur, players like that are doing well on their current loans. So I don't know what the difference is between the women's loan system and the men's loan system, but we seem to loan male players out, and they don't really do too much. It's obviously a lot more competitive game, and it's a higher level, etc., etc., etc. But the girls seem to do really well wherever they go. They're good. The loans seem to do work really well for them, whether it's Motherwell, who a lot of players seem to go to, or Gart Cairn with a few at Hamilton. There's one or two questionable ones about why you put them in teams that are struggling, but the loans do really seem to work.
Yeah, they certainly do. They certainly come back better players. I think Ailey and Laura have proved that. Being away at Motherwell for that 6 months, we all bemoaned it when it happened, but when they came back, they were clearly better and they were better for it. So, it gives them a chance to, get out there and, grow a little bit as a player and a person. So it obviously works. So yeah. And then, Jodie came off at half-time, Alan. Katie Wilkinson came off not long after. May Cruft coming on, Meng Wen Lee coming on, Camille Le Fay coming on in the 66th minute for Sabaggio. So, not quite a triple sub, obviously, but, 10 minutes here or there. Just trying to break things up, trying to, get a goal.
Yeah, I think we're doing well to manage May's exposure. We need to remember she's only a couple of months past her 16th birthday, and we need to be very careful with her, but we need to make sure she's also getting plenty of experience. So it's a very fine balance here. But Jodie's also played a lot of football this season. We also need to make sure we give her a rest now and again. So I think, again, like we said about the Partick game, 2-0, the game's pretty much done. There's not really much jeopardy there. It's just about going and, I think more important than goals is building the relationships on the park, building the patterns of play and just understanding exactly where teammates are going to be and just start making better decisions. I think it's important that we get players on the park and get minutes in their legs. I think Camille will be champing it a bit to play more than she has been. But, we've obviously been very careful with her after she's come back from injury. And Quinty's starting to step up her performances. She's settling in a wee bit more. Shinji's now back fit and showing why she's so highly rated. So I don't think we've always had the balance right. In midfield, we lost so much in the summer, but the players in there individually are playing well, and as the season goes, they're starting to play a wee bit better as a unit, which is encouraging.
Brian, the substitution that interests me, you just glossed right over the top of it, and you said that
Lee Meng Wen came
on after 55 minutes. I actually, messaged Demi just before we went live when I was doing my writing it all down, and I noticed that Lee Meng came on for Katie Wilkinson. I mean, surely that's wrong, Demi. But no, we were a bit puzzled about that as well. But obviously, because we weren't at the game and the highlights are very, very brief, I'd love to know how we set up after that. Because we'll take my striker off. Alan, do you know? Because we'll take my striker off and we've basically stuck a right back on. I don't really get that.
I would very much expect Laura Berry would, and people in the comments, if they were watching the game, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd expect we move Laura Berry through the middle. Excuse me, Ailey Austin up to right wing, and Lee Meng Wen would have moved into right back. So we've seen that once or twice. Couple of subs have maybe seen a few players change position, but there would have been a bit of time for Laura Berry to run riot through the middle of the park and Nelly to play further up.
Yeah, it was just a weird when you look at it on paper and you think, really? Yeah. I had to take with Demi that's actually what happened, and it wasn't a misprint. But there you go. That's 100% what happened, Alan. So there you go.
There you go.
I had to put that up. My ego would that to go unchecked.
And then Wolf, the goal of the game, Shinji from the corner. I mean, it's not often you see that, is it?
I said exactly that to Demi earlier. I was on the photo. She took two of her younger sisters to their first ever Rangers game yesterday, and I said, "Look, I hope you told them it's not very often you see a goal direct from a corner." She said, "We couldn't see it. There was somebody standing in front of us and blocking our view, but that's one of those things. But you don't see that very often. I mean, and obviously I got the alert. I knew she'd scored, but really when I watched the highlights, I went, "Wow, straight from a corner. That's incredible." You know what I mean? Just the keeper's probably got to do better with it. To be fair, however, you know what I mean. You can't argue with a goal straight from a corner, particularly at the Balmoral Stadium where it's always bloody windy.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, Alan, it's again, no matter what league or what football you watch, scoring from a corner is one of those things that you see very, once in a blue moon stuff. It happens. You're lucky if it happens once a year because, the defenses are so good, the goalkeepers are set up well. So for it to happen, it's extremely unusual.
It is, but sometimes, and you learn this when you're young, if you can play percentage balls into the box, and whether it's from a corner or wide area or a set piece, make sure it's on target because there's a chance it's just going to be missed by everybody and goes in. But whether or not Shin's meant to score from it or just put it in a really difficult area for a keeper to get it, it's been absolutely perfectly executed, and it's always brilliant to see. It's not one that's sort of bobbled in and flicked its way in. It's an absolute brilliant cross in, and it's right in the sort of top corner. It's the one goal I did see on the highlights on the way back from Edinburgh yesterday. So certainly worth watching if you haven't seen it.
Certainly. Absolutely. So the league table after the two fixtures that we obviously missed last week, so, counting both weeks, Glasgow City are on 38 points after 14 rounds. Rangers are on 31, slightly better goal difference than Hearts, who are also on 31 points. Celtic are on 31 points also. I'm trying to work out the goal difference there, but Hearts are, I don't quite know. Hearts have got a worse goal difference than Celtic, but Celtic are below them, so I don't quite understand that. And then Hibs are on 25.
It goes head to head first. It goes head to head.
Right, and then, as we've all found out, there's a bit of a gap between the 5th and 6th spots. There's a clear 5, and then there's the rest. So yeah, it's very tight, Alan. There's 3 of them on 31, 25. Glasgow City's 7 points ahead of everybody else. So it's if it wasn't for Glasgow City, it'd be a really good league.
Yeah, listen, there's 2 goals separate the 3 teams that are tied on 31 points, and as well says it does go on head-to-head records. So we're probably screwed out of that, and we're going to have to point anybody. But Hibs have probably been the one that's struggled more. I expected Hibs to be favourites for a title, and at this point they're probably, especially after today's news, Hibs are probably out of that title race, but they will have a big say in it because Hibs will remain a very dangerous team, and they'll continue to take points off the other top teams in the top 5. So it's got to be a tremendously difficult league to win, and there's 5 teams going to be fighting with everything you've got to win that. But as you sit at the point where we're taking a break in the league, it's been Glasgow City have deservedly ended up on top. I don't believe the stats show that they were the better team yesterday at the Orient, but again, they've came away with a 1-0 win, and they've conceding very, very few goals, which makes them a formidable team to try and topple.
I believe that the stats didn't actually lie, because I was driving back up the road and Carol was watching it on her phone, and there was a lot of curses and sweary words, and I can't believe they've just fucking scored because we're all over them like a rash, all that sort of stuff. So it sounds very much like Hearts were very dominant over City, but as Alan says, behind City, they're just not losing. They're just not losing goals. They're not dropping points. They are going to be very, very difficult to topple. I'm just hoping that when they do lose a game, they back it up with another loss, and then we can start reeling them back in. But it's going to be a very, very tough ask.
Absolutely.
We've also got a question here from Paul, because seeing as I'm doing all the button pushing again. Question, guys: what are we going to do now that we can't see that Mobs manager getting a booking now that she's just left? And this came as a bit of a bolt out the blue this morning. Laura put in the group chat that the Hibs manager, Grant Scott, had left to go to Celtic, and my initial reaction was, surely he's not going to be number 2 after being number 1 at Hibs. She went, no, he's replacing Elena. And how did I miss that? But that only broke this morning as well. So apparently Elena Saduku, or whatever her name is, get sacked this morning. And Celtic have gone to Hibs, giving them a pocket full of change and said, look, we're taking Grant Scott off you. Which I think is a great move, probably a great move for both Celtic and Grant Scott. So I think he'll do quite well there. Don't know where as Alan says, I don't quite know where it leaves Hibs. You've got to think our City rivals must have been expecting it for them to move so quickly.
Yeah.
And I would imagine it was probably done something over the weekend, which is a bit strange because they played each other yesterday.
I know.
For them to agree to a deal and it to all be sorted out inside a couple of hours this morning strikes me as a little bit strange. So I would imagine it was probably a negotiation over the weekend, which I don't want to draw any conspiracy theories, but they played each other yesterday, so I don't really know. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we won't see skip caps flying about when she loses her shit again, because she's gone to somebody in Scandinavia, I believe. And I wish Grant Scott nothing but bad luck when he moves to his new club.
Something that they must have been sort of working on, you'd imagine, because Paul Brownlie's obviously left Motherwell, after doing a terrific job there, and he's went there as head of youth, so he'll no doubt be involved. So that's two of the top managers in the league being poached by them. So maybe they're going to step up their game, because I don't think they've been very good lately, but it certainly makes it a bigger challenge. But certainly looking at our next league games, our next 3 league games, I've got them in front of me. Home against Hibs, away against Glasgow City, and then home against Grant Scott's new team. So actually, that's a cup game. So that's our next 2 league games: home against Hibs and away against Glasgow City. Then a cup semi-final. So we certainly need the break. We need to go away and make sure we're getting strengthened. Glasgow City have already confirmed their first player coming in January. That deal was done weeks ago and announced. So certainly both Donald and Leanne have spoke about already doing a lot of work in preparation for window in January. So hopefully by the time we kick off against Kilmarnock on the 11th of January in the Cup, we're already talking about new signings, because the league's only going to get tougher.
Yeah, it certainly will. It certainly will. So, yeah, folks, that'll be us. It's we've covered 2 games. I'm quite aware that the main sort of members pod is on at 7:30, so that'll be hosted by Martin with Stuart and Ian, as in Hamish, not Ian Thompson. So that'll be coming up at 7:30 tonight, so you can join us then.
Brian, just before you go, because I love cutting across you as you're doing your outro, right? See, Alan touched there on the cup semi-final with Grant Scott's new team, right? See the timing of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is me on my hobby horse again about fixture clashes, right? And the fact that they don't really seem to give a monkeys about the women's game in this country, right? They've scheduled that for 20 to 2, which is a ridiculous kickoff time, right? The same day that both us and them men's first team are playing, we're away at Hibs and they're at home to somebody because we're both playing in Europe on the Thursday. So they must have been aware of that, right? The other semi-final between Hibs and Glasgow City, and okay, we're playing Hibs on the Sunday, so there'd be a clash there for them, right? But we're away at Hibs on the Sunday, right? It's getting played on the Saturday tea time. So surely the sensible thing to do is play the Old Firm game on the Saturday tea time when, even if BBC Alba won't be interested in people going to the game, but at least they're interested in an eyes on it, get people watching the game, then play the other one in Meadowbank on the Sunday and kick it off so that you can do that Hibs fans could do both, because there's only a mile between the grounds. I mean, or does that make too much sense? I just can't believe that they've scheduled the Old Firm game for the same day and the same time that both teams are playing, so nobody will want to watch it. I mean, I just don't think they take the women's game seriously, and that's the people that are running it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, Wolf, I very much think you're going up the river here without a paddle with the fixtures. It's every I wouldn't say every weekend, but you know, it's an ongoing issue, and it's been like that for years, Alan, hasn't it? It's almost, it doesn't matter how much you bleat or how much you point out these things, nothing changes.
Yeah, and there was a time when the club were trying really hard to work around fixture clashes and try and find solutions, but you know,
and I think it's important to say though, it's not the clubs we're blaming here; it's the hierarchy.
No, definitely. You know, there needs to be a bit more joined up thinking. You know, and especially given the proximity of Meadowbank and Easter Road, you know, they could have been organised at a suitable time where fans could have done both. You know, a possible big boost to the gate. And if you talk about there's a crowd of 300, if you add another 100 fans in there, that's a massive percentage increase. You know, and we're not talking about big numbers, but you know, if you want to grow the game, you need to look at percentages, and any extra fans through the gate is a percentage increase and extra exposure to the game. And you know, the opportunities are getting missed so often, and it's sad to see. You know, we're all passionate about the women's game up here. We want to see it grow. We want to see it develop. We want to see it getting better. The standard getting raised. And you know, there's just so many missed opportunities there.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I think it's going to be a difficult one, Wolf, getting people in January. It's a notorious window for signing people. It's you might get one or two coming in, but I don't think there's going to be a massive influx of players. As you pointed out, you know, Sarah and Lizzie might be coming back, Brogan might be coming back, so the pressure might come off the current squad.
Yeah, but we still need bodies. I mean, Donald said that fans collaboration thing more that you know, they were quite happy to run with a squad of 20, 25 and a couple left right on the last day of the window, so that was down to 23. Liam's kind of looking ideally to be 2 or 3 more than that. So they probably will. That would indicate to me they're going to bring in one or two. You know what I mean? But if it's just a case of bringing in bodies, I don't want that. I want bodies that can actually add to the squad, add to the quality of what we've got in the squad. You know, I don't want to just bring in people because we're short of bodies, because we can fit. You know, that's when the young players come into their own. As I say, it's great to see Sasha and Phoebe getting a wee run out here and there. So we'll have to utilise them more. But if we've got experienced players that can come in, then that's fine. Bring them in, but don't just bring in players for the sake of bringing in players. And the Paul's question: what position, if any, do we need to look at? We need to look at the goalkeeper position, not in January particularly, but we certainly need to look for a goalkeeper in the summer, I would say, and possibly a bit of cover at centre half. I think that we're more or less covered everywhere else, I think, but I don't know what you guys think of that, but that's, for me, if we were bringing in a couple, and I mean, it was interesting in the Partick Thistle game that Megan Cunningham was on the bench. I haven't seen Megan for a long, long time. I mean, she was on the bench. Whether that was just to get her involved in a match day squad or not, I've really got no idea. But I just think we could do with another keeper and possibly another centre half as cover, because the defence is getting. I'm not even going to say it because Alan will not let me forget it if I say what I was going to say. So I'll just move on.
Absolutely. Well, folks, as Wolf said earlier, that is the women's football finished till mid-January. So we will be taking a break.
No, we won't. No, we won't.
Oh?
No, we won't.
Come on then.
Well, what I think I mentioned it to Alan previously. When there was the last international break, I was possibly going to do like a report card for the women. I thought we sort of decided to do that over the winter break, so we'll do that over the winter break. I think.
There we go. We'll do
on a Monday. We might not do the 3 Mondays, but certainly next week we'll start it next week. See how we get on if everybody's available. We'll sort of look at the squad and see how we think they're getting on. I think that'd be quite interesting. A sort of report card type thing.
Fair enough.
You brought it up, so we'll have a wee bash at that. And Keith, I don't know if they'll play at Ibrox because the venue's still to be confirmed. Donald did tell us, and you were there at the time, that the groundsman said there's no way you're getting the player map pitch to December and January, and the game's in January. So I don't know. I'd like to think they'll play at Ibrox, but again, with the fixture clashes, it really worth moving it to Ibrox because we won't get a crowd. But I don't know. Really don't know.
No. Absolutely not. But as you both just said, we will try and bring something over the international break for the women's game, because obviously the club stuff is finished till, I think it's 11th of January, is it? 10th, 11th of January? Yeah, so the club stuff
against Kilmarnock, which clashes with the men's first team at Pittodrie. You couldn't make it up. You know what I mean?
Can't split yourself in two, Wolf. But
in January there's one game there's not a fixture clash of the 4 we've got in January. One.
Yeah, it's again with you can say this to your blue in the face and nothing will change. So but I suppose if you stop saying, then they'll accept it. I think if you keep saying and raising it, then hopefully something will finish. So, but yeah. Thank you very much for everybody for supporting the pod this year. The women's pod. It's been great. Numbers have been going up. The eyes, a lot more eyes on the women's game. So it's good in that respect. My thanks to Wolf and Alan for joining me tonight.
Always a pleasure, Brian.
No, listen, thanks, guys, and I'll echo what you said about everybody in the comments. The chat's always busy, on a Monday night when we're on the show, and it's always encouraging and everybody's getting involved with each other. So it's really good to see. The support means a lot, and listen, keep watching and keep supporting.
Absolutely, and of course Demi and Car and Laura as well. Thank you to everybody that's been involved with the women's pod. Thank you to all the people in the chat. As I say, it's always, as Alan's just said, it's always a buzz with people chatting and bringing up topics. But on behalf of everybody on the Rabble, have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year when it comes. Stay safe, enjoy yourself, and be with those that matter the most. So thank you very much, everyone, and we'll speak very, very soon.
Merry Christmas, chaps and chapesses.